Join us in the Bear Den, a real-life, real-love podcast celebrating the joys and challenges of parenting, family dynamics, and unconditional love.
Hey, my friends, welcome to another episode of the Bear Den podcast. Today, I have the most beautiful guest, Miss Amber, in the studio with me. She's going to come in. She's going to talk to us about growing up here in Utah, married to her husband, Ben, their two beautiful children, and also the podcast that she's starting. So let's get into it. Miss Amber.
Hi.
How are you, my dear?
I'm so good today.
Yeah, thank you for coming in. I'm
for
excited to
having me.
chat it up.
Me too.
So, I hear you have a very interesting backstory. Dun, dun, dun.
I do. Yeah.
Tell me. So, did you grow up in Utah?
Kind of off
Okay.
and on.
Okay.
I mainly grew up in Colorado. That's where my biological dad lives.
Okay.
And I was raised by my grandma, my mom's mom, down
Okay.
in southern Colorado. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
So I moved here. I lived here when I was younger. Lived in Colorado from basically 10 to 19
Okay.
and moved here after high school to be with my mom again.
What made you move?
Moved to Colorado?
Yeah.
I was born there, and
Okay.
my dad. So I have 4 younger sisters by my
Okay.
dad,
Okay.
and they all lived there. So basically, like my family was there, and I always, even now, I still consider Colorado my home.
Okay.
I missed it a lot, and my mom. I think for her, she considered, not I think, I know, we've talked about it since then. It was an opportunity for her to kind of get her life together, get back on her feet. She was really deep in her drug addiction at the time.
Oh, your mom was?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
And so it was kind of a win-win. I wanted to go home and see my dad and my sisters. And she figured, well, this is an opportunity for me to really get things back together. Because at the time when I left, we were staying with somebody and I was sleeping on a yoga mat on the floor with a sleeping bag. Like that was our living situation. And she was sleeping on the couch. And so I moved in. It was supposed to be just for winter break. For a few weeks. And my mom was like, you know what, if you want to stay a little bit longer because you haven't seen them, you can. I don't think she expected it to be 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, and of course, like your teenage years are really when you're figuring out who you are and your core memories are being created. You're developing your full personality and your
Chasing
opinions about
boys.
things. Oh, yeah.
Doing all those sort of things. Well, no, it's true. It's, when you're
Yeah.
a teenager, emotions are there and,
Yeah.
things are happening, bodies are changing.
Exactly.
Things that you didn't like before, you're now starting to like. And that boy that was an idiot's now the crush of your life. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
not speaking from experience, obviously. But you know what I mean? Like, things change when you're a teenager.
A lot
Life
happens.
isn't easy anymore.
Yeah.
And you honestly think you have to fix everything. You're like, oh, the world's so tough. I got homework.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
when
also,
another
I
20
know
years until you got
everything.
bills to pay, bitch. Just
Yeah.
freaking do your homework.
Exactly. So I lived there, lived in Colorado Springs for a couple years with my dad and my Korean grandma, his mom. And then I moved down to,
Did you say Korean?
yeah.
Very cool.
So I'm a third Korean, yeah.
Nice. So you lived there with your dad and your Korean Korean grandmother?
And then moved down to southern Colorado to live with my mom's mom. Her name's Lonnie, or was Lonnie. She passed away a couple years ago.
Okay.
And she raised me. She was my mother figure.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
So you've had a very split childhood.
I feel like I've lived 3 lifetimes.
Yeah.
Like when I talk about certain things, it seems so long ago and I'm such a different person. But it just, I don't know, like you said, just some extremes, I guess. So yeah.
What was some of the, looking back now, obviously as you're, older in life, you've got your own kids, you married and have your own family. Looking back, what were some of the struggles that you had being separated between 2 homes? And the reason why I ask is, Andrew and I, we have daughters and we have a split family where they're with their dad at weekends and during the week and with us a lot, 99% of the time. But, they have a split family too.
Yeah.
And we talk about it now. It's like, oh, whatever. We just know the routine. It is what it is. But what was it like for you, especially with such distance? It's like one end of the state to the other. We're in the same town. We're a mile and a half apart.
Yeah. So it's like a quick drive.
Yeah.
For me, it's really interesting because one, my parents were never married. So it wasn't like this whole divorce that we had to go through.
Gotcha.
They split when I was really young, like a few months old. They tried to get back together when I was 3, and that was the first time that I met my real dad.
Wow.
And I mean, I had talked to him a couple times on the phone. He was very abusive to my mom. And I witnessed that when they tried to get back together. We lived in Michigan at the time, and I was 3 and 4, I think, when we lived up there. And I remember it. And I've tried to have a relationship with him. He has been in and out of prison my entire life too.
Gotcha.
He's very institutionalized, and as far as if things get a little too crazy or he has too much on his plate, bites off more than he can chew, whatever, doesn't like the situation he's in, he knows what to do to get himself back into the system.
Gotcha.
And so like that's his comfort zone. When he's there, he thrives.
In prison? Gotcha.
And so
it's almost like his safety net. He doesn't have to deal with the world because
Yep.
he knows when he's going to bed, he knows when he's getting fed, he knows what his boundaries are. And
exactly.
it's a safety net.
And it's a controlled environment where he can be put on a certain persona type of thing. Whereas in the world, I mean, it's rogue out here.
Yeah, yeah.
So
you got to wear a lot of different hats. You got to deal with a lot of different things.
And people like have higher expectations of you as far as being an adult.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard.
Yeah.
I imagine that's probably hard for him to live up to. So I've tried to have a relationship with him. We don't have a relationship. We don't really talk now. And I'm okay with that.
Okay.
So to answer your question, it was very different. It's not your typical like, oh, I'm split between my parents. My relationship with my parents is very interesting. My mom for a long time was more of a friend, and even now we're more friends, and our relationship has gone up and down recently. It's been really, really great. She's actually been clean. I think in September was her 3-year anniversary.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And it just makes me so glad because I just know like my relationship with my grandparents was huge.
Yeah.
And even my great-grandparents, I was really close to my great-grandparents and got to know them. They lived to be in their late 90s.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate to like hear their story and bond with them. So that's something that's really important to me too. And where as far as my parents go, the only one that I want to be part of my kid's life is my mom. I'm so glad that she's
clean and able to do that.
Yeah, taking those steps to be a part of their life.
Yeah, I think that's so huge. I think, and it's, you know, like you said, you hit it on the head. You have such a beautiful childhood and beautiful memories of your grandparents. And it's a shame that your kids don't ultimately get to have the same experience and growing up and childhood that you did, being loved by another set of adults. That's the huge thing. And I think what's so important with kids and grandparents is, you know, kids get the love from their parents, but then they also get love from grandparents.
And grandparents' love is so different than parental love. It's just like, I don't know. It's just
because there's no freaking discipline.
Right?
That's why.
They're giving you all the candy.
You know, it's 6 o'clock at night and the kids want to eat candy. You're like, hell no. They did that to the grandparents. Like, fuck it. Eat it all, kiddo. We'll send you home afterwards.
Exactly.
There's no
That's
discipline.
great.
Grandparents don't give a shit. But it's unconditional love. There's no expectations. I just want you to be you and love and play and fun and all those sort of things, you know. And grandparents love to teach and, you know, do grandparenting type shit. And, you know, our girls have, God, we have so many grandparents. It's unreal.
I love that. That's the other thing too, is I feel like, I mean, earlier we were talking about how your friends are your family.
Yeah.
And for us, that's definitely how it's been. And so like for our kids, my husband's also part of the We Are the They group.
I love
and
Ben.
so
I love
we've
Ben.
just gotten so many friends that, so my grandma used to have this saying of, they're friends of the road and they're friends of the heart. Friends of the road come and go. They have their season. And they definitely serve a purpose in your life, but they come and they go. Friends of the heart are forever. They will always be with you.
I love that.
And we have gained so many friends of the heart through Watt and like extended family for our kids too. So they have like all of the grandparents and the extra aunts and uncles and everything.
I love that.
It's awesome.
That you know what? That is absolutely true and credit to Jimmy Rex and the movement. That you know, the guys and gals that are in We Are the They, the men that are in leadership, the women that are in Queens, we build such strong relationships as adults that their families become our families. Yeah. They just are.
Well, and it's not like, oh, we've known each other forever, so that's how we're bonded. You guys have gone through some really heavy and deep shit. You've covered like a lot of deep things and helped each other.
Trauma. We've gone through trauma. We've gone through fun. We've gone through misery. We've gone through laughter. We've gone through it all in 18 months.
Yeah.
And it's forged friendships, and honestly, it has forged families out of We Are the They.
Yeah. And those are the people that I want my kids to have around as an example of people who are willing to go through all of that heavy shit and face their demons and work through it instead of burying it down and let's just be surface. You know, I want my kids to have that example and that expectation of themselves of like, this is the norm.
Just think about who you are now surrounding your children with. You are surrounding yourself, your children with growth-minded adults that are looking to be better, that have figured out their shit and are in a healthy space.
Yep.
How better can you get for people to be around your children?
Right.
Those are the people you would choose. You would pay for those people to be around your children, and now they're just your friends.
Exactly.
You know?
Well, and not only that, but these are people who obviously they didn't grow up working through all of this. This is stuff later on, and so there's no judgment as far as like, okay, yeah, we make mistakes or this happens or whatever. You work through it. You know, it's a different. I don't know. It's just a whole different vibe. There's like a lot less judgment as far as working through things.
And I think it's beautiful that you all of our children, you know, our children, your children, we have these amazing friendships, and the children of those friends, they now become the next generation of We Are the They.
Yeah.
And they actually don't have to go through We Are the They to have what We Are the They has given us.
Right.
Because they have 50 families that are now family, or 50 friends that are now family. They have this extended family. They don't have to search for it. We found it for them.
Yeah.
You know, one of our greatest friends are Mark and Michelle McCormack. Every time we come into Utah, we literally stay with them. Their kids are best friends with our kids. Their kids text and call our kids all the time. Our eldest daughter, Lily, actually called Mark a couple of weeks ago because she wanted to talk about investing and starting up an investing bank account for herself.
That is so cool.
She's 13.
Oh my gosh.
And so she literally was like, hey, I'm going to call Mark and talk about investing. And Mark's like, sure, whatever, kiddo. Her and Mark are like FaceTiming and Marcoing and texting and all this sort of.
I'm 37 and I don't even know.
I know. But that's just the level of friendships we have. I love it, you know? And so, Mark, so awesome. I'll be on the couch with Lily and she's laughing her ass off. I'm like, what you doing? She's like, I'm just talking to Mark. And so I'll call Mark. I'm like, hey, dude, if Lily's just pestering the shit out of you, I know you got work to do. And he's like, dude, stop. He's like, if I had shit to do, I wouldn't talk to her. He's like, actually, it was me that texted her. I'm like, well, that makes sense, you giant toddler. You need a friend. You know what I mean? Oh my gosh, but that's just the way it is. And when they come to visit us, the kids are hanging off of them. And whenever we go to come up to Utah to visit the McCormicks, the first thing they do, the kids run in and give us a giant hug, and they've got gifts and notes for us and pictures they've drew.
And that's like the ultimate dream, I feel like. I was talking to one of my friends about this it's cool when you have your best friend and your husbands like kind of get along to where they're cool to hang out, but it's even more awesome when the wives are best friends, the husbands are best friends, and the kids are best friends.
What's even better than that the final iteration is when, for instance, you are also best friends with the husband, and the wife is also best friends with Ben.
Yep.
So
that mutual trust.
So with the McCormicks, the Howlands, the Sherwoods, the Butchers, like there's a lot of people in our group that we are really good friends with.
Yeah. Same.
To put this into context, I have had beautiful conversations with Michelle McCormack, just the two of us, sat on the couch, sat at the coffee table, just beautiful conversations. I've called Mark because Andrew and I have had an argument, and I've called Mark. I'm like, hey, I need a bro. And so I've called Mark. I'm like, hey, dude, I fucked up, blah, blah. And I've got like 30 seconds into the conversation. I'm like, actually, I don't need to talk to you. I need to call Michelle. And I've hung up and called Michelle. And I've been on the phone for an hour with Michelle talking through what's going on. And she's been giving me the most beautiful counsel. And I've gone back and had the conversation with Andrew. It's all worked.
Yeah.
And the same with Michelle, Andrew and Mark. Andrew and Mark talk daily.
Yeah.
And I talk to Michelle, via text or day. Like we have this beautiful relationship. And Michelle knows she can lean into me if she needs to. 2 weeks ago, Andrea came up for the retreat.
Yeah.
And then she came up the weekend after.
Yeah.
Because Michelle and Chris had some surgery and she was looking after them. She freaking started to bleed out.
I heard about that.
And it was Mark that took her to the hospital at 6 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
Like that's the level of trust we have with these people. Like if I'm not there, you are me.
I know,
with
I
my
can count on you.
I can count on you.
Yep.
So that's the beauty we're building here.
Well, that's even to the extent of we have found family members that like if anything were to ever happen to Ben and I, we have found our friends, our new family that we would trust to step in
Yeah.
and raise our kids. And we know that they would raise our kids the way we want them to be raised. There would they wouldn't even skip a
there's
beat.
no questions
Yeah.
asked. Yep, no questions asked. Unbelievably so.
Yeah,
Unbelievably
I love
so.
that.
So you've got this very extended, drawn out family across the state of Colorado, and you've gone through, as you're growing up, kind of your dad and his kind of imprisonment and his institutionalization, and you don't really have that relationship. Do you have much of a relationship with him now, or?
No, I tried to, and we were kind of on like a friends basis. And then a couple years ago, actually around mine and Ben's wedding, just the whole thing was just, he was just trying to guilt me and be very manipulative, and that I wasn't spending time with him. And he wanted me to spend time with him on my wedding day. And I was like, I am waking up at 5 a.m. to get my hair done. And then I'm driving here to get my, I'm getting married. This isn't like I'm attending a wedding.
Yeah.
You obviously don't know how this works. And he even,
you don't know how this works, Dad, because you never did it.
yeah, exactly. Right. Let me tell you. But yeah. And even while we were having our father-daughter dance, which was more just like, I was just doing him a favor of why I just picked a random song, whatever, for us to dance to. And while we were dancing, he even admitted, he's like, yeah, I was trying to guilt you and you just weren't falling for it. And I just kind of realized after that, like, especially as a parent, it really puts things in perspective when you become a parent. Like, I don't need to put my energy into this anymore. And I am okay. I think for a long time I had, the daddy issues and the absence and, I wish this and that. But it's more just like, I hear other people talk about their dads of, yeah, I can always count on him and he fixes my car and he shows up for me. And that just sounds foreign to me. Like, I don't know. It just, I have no perspective of what that would, or understanding of what that would be like.
Do you feel like you missed that?
I do.
Up?
Yeah, I do feel like I missed that. And it's such an interesting thing. I miss it. I wish I could have had it. Clearly. Like, I mean, obviously, why wouldn't I want that?
Yeah.
But also you can't miss what you
don't
never had. Yeah. And in the option of having it with him, I don't want that.
That's really powerful.
So it's been...
That's actually very, very powerful to know that you're missing something, but you're better off without it than having it with the person who who it should be coming from.
Yeah.
You've looked at the situation and gone, I'm missing it and I want it, but that's really fucking poisonous and I'm not going down that road. I'd rather not have it than have it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's very powerful.
Well, and it puts the importance even more so of making sure that I create that for my kids, for my husband and I, that we create. And it's not, I try not to come from I'm going to give my kids everything I didn't have, but understanding what I did and I didn't have, what I benefited from, what I didn't benefit from. Like, even things that I did have, did that serve me? Is that something that I want my kids to have?
Yeah.
It's funny because I was talking to somebody about this the other day as far as parenting goes. I've always been really envious of my friends who have some sort of a passion and they just dive right in and they know everything about it and they're experts on it, right? And I tend to hyperfixate on things and I'll be an expert for about 6 months and then I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. On to the next.
We are so alike. It's like, ooh, squirrel, right? All in.
I'm going to learn everything about this.
Ooh, another squirrel, all in.
And Ben's so supportive. I love it. He's like, okay, let's do that then. But one of the things I actually realized a few months ago that I am so passionate about and will do all of the research and dig deep into is parenting. And it's something that I actually take a lot of pride in how I parent my children. I'm so intentional as far as understanding them and how I talk to them and how we process things. And I'll do research on something and think, okay, that's a good way. Let's test this out. And it works. Or I'll test it out. Okay, that didn't work. We're going to try it a little bit differently. And it's the one thing that I'm super, super passionate about, super intentional about. And I just take so much pride in the way that, and not to say that I'm perfect.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. I've exploded at my kids and my son's dropped the F-bomb several times. But
that's okay. Hey.
I'm actually not worried about that. No, it's just a word.
Could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
So what's some of the things that you've learned that you've put into practice that have been so pivotal for you, Ben, and the kids, like in that world of parenting?
I think allowing my kids to feel their emotions and letting them know that it's okay and helping them differentiate. Like a small example would be when our son falls and we're like, oh, you're fine. Don't worry about it. Don't cry. Instead asking him, are you scared or are you hurt? Was that scary for you and that's why you're crying, or are you really hurt? And he gets to identify, and then we get to process through that. Whether it's, well, you fell and you're okay. Let's check if anything's hurt. I know that was scary. Let's be careful next time, you know? Another one too is letting him see that I have emotions, that I'm a real person. A couple things we've done is, one, when I get too overstimulated, which happens kind of easily, but the first time I did this, Beckett thought that he was in trouble, but I told him, hey, I don't really like the way that I'm acting right now. I'm not handling this the right way, and I don't like the way that I'm talking to you, so I need to take a couple minutes. I'm just going to go in the other room. You're not in trouble, and I know you're going to be okay and you're safe, but I'm just going to go in the other room for a couple minutes so I can calm down, and then I'll be right back, and then we'll handle this. And the first time, like I said, he thought he was in trouble, and I had to walk him through that. I came back out, and his mood had shifted, and I was ready to handle the situation as well. So just letting him see that sometimes I need a break, and I don't like the way that I'm handling this, so I'm going to reframe it. I'm going to do what I need to so I can handle it the right way. And Ben and I also will have arguments. I don't know. We don't really fight, but obviously we're two different people. We have differing opinions, and sometimes you can get kind of heated about that.
Absolutely.
And Beckett and he in the beginning would stand in between us and be like, stop yelling, stop fighting, stop it, calm down.
Go to your room.
Yeah. We don't use those words,
That's hilarious. Okay, listen, everybody's emotional. You're going to go into different rooms. You're going to calm down. We're going to come back together in 3 minutes.
I don't like the way you're talking to each other. I'm almost waiting for him to say that. Actually,
and at that point, like, you're just so proud. You're like, I'm so proud.
But he's been able to see us have our arguments and have our differing opinions, and then also find a resolution with those.
Come back together, yeah.
So he can see what a healthy relationship is and that's how it works. That's normal. It's okay for you to have different opinions, and it's okay for you to be passionate about those different opinions.
Yeah.
But then you also work together to find middle ground of how you're going to work through that.
Yeah. It's very true. I think, if kids don't see their parents argue, they just live in this false world of perfection.
Yeah.
And then when shit does hit the fan, where you have an argument in the car where you can't really get away from it, and the kids are in the back, they're like, oh my
what is this?
God, what are mom and dad doing?
Yeah.
Yes, but as long as you come back and say, hey kids, it was ugly that you saw that. Mommy and daddy love each other. We just have a different opinion. We figured it out. We love you. We love each other. We're all good. Like, you just got to, bring them through it.
And obviously, like, it's what is appropriate in front of our kids. Like, we're not going to have full on blown out conversation or arguments in front of our kids.
But there might be a little snip and, here and there, or, over groceries or TV or dinner or fight, whatever it is. There's always a little nip, you just got to, it's okay for kids to see that.
Yeah. Just letting your kids know that you're human, and here's how you process through this.
Yeah.
Here's a healthy way to process
And I think the emotion thing too, you'd hit the nail on the head there. The kids some people would say that kids don't need to see their parents being emotional or weak. I say that's bullshit. I think the kids need to see that. I had a very interesting personal thing happen this last week, actually, with our eldest daughter, Lily. Something had happened. She'd made a decision, and she wasn't wrong by any means. She just made a decision without running it past Andrea and I.
Okay.
Which honestly, the decision she made was the right decision. We just wish she'd run it by us first.
Yeah.
Now they also have a very different background because of the complications we have with their biological dad, and that kind of story. So, and so I kind of questioned her about it, and I went about it the wrong way, and I kind of made her feel like what she did was wrong, even though it was what was right, but she just went about it the wrong way.
Right.
And to be honest with you, my emotions had been high for a couple of weeks. Andrea had her surgery. We'd had this complication where she'd almost freaking bled out, and I thought I was losing her, and it had just been really emotional. And so I kind of snapped, and she got a little bit upset, and I got a little bit upset, and I just started fucking crying right in front of my 13-year-old. And she kind of stopped and looked at me as if to say, oh shit, dad's broke. because I can't control it.
Yeah.
And then she starts to tear up.
Oh.
And honestly, she just sat in my lap and she just hugged me.
Mm.
And she buried her head into my neck, and I buried mine into hers. And we were just sobbing for about a minute or two. And I kind of stopped sobbing and she stopped sobbing. And I kind of pulled away and wiped my eyes. And she looked at me and she went, I feel better. And I went, me too. And she goes, okay, I love you. And I was like, I love you too. And she got up.
That was huge.
That was it. And she texted me probably about an hour or so later. She's like, Dad, I love you. And I needed that. I said, I love you too, boo. And so did I.
Oh my gosh.
That was it.
So much.
There was no, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, where's this coming from? You know what I mean?
Or you choking up
Or
and then
me
hurrying and trying
choking
to
up
hide
and
it.
holding it back and just getting angry. Because my default emotion, which I'm working very hard to get through, has always been anger.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get upset. I don't get emotional. I get
and-
defensive. I get angry and I'll fucking kill you. Like, who am I fighting? That's my default, right?
Yeah.
Call it 10 years in the military, whatever, but it's my default.
Yeah.
And so for me to actually sit there and just let the tears flow in front of my kid and then not be embarrassed about it, and just for her to be like, oh, he's working through something and so am I. We need each other.
Yeah.
She didn't walk in the other direction. She just hugged me.
I love that so much. That is huge because, like, think about all of the different ways that that's going to help her. One, okay, it's okay to feel your emotions and to release them, that you don't have to hold them back, to have that safe space. Two, you're human. You have emotions. You're working through things. My dad is a real person. Three, it's still masculine for a man to have emotions and cry. Like, so many huge things happened in that simple
Just
interaction.
3-minute interaction.
that are, it's going to affect her for the rest of her life. She's going to remember that.
Yeah, and as she gets older, you know, there's things that we've done as parents and as a family, you know, from a young age. Like, I tickle the kids like crazy, right? I love the fact of them laughing and squealing and, you know, not unable to breathe and the giggling. Like, I got tickled as a kid and I loved it, and now I tickle my kids. But they're 13 and 11. They're getting a little older. Bodies are changing. You know, tickling isn't really appropriate.
Yeah.
And so, but they've voiced that to me. They're like, hey, you know, the tickling and the slap my butt and grabbing me, that, you know, it's kind of not cool anymore, Dad.
Yeah.
And I turned around and said, yeah, you know what? I respect that. I won't do it anymore.
That's so good.
And Lily, my eldest, was kind of like, you won't? And I said, no. I said, but, and Andrew was right there when I said it. I was like, honey, if you can't tell me your dad, one of only 2 males in your life right now that should concern you, if you can't tell me where your boundaries are, then we have a freaking problem.
Yes.
Because if you can't tell me your dad and I can't respect them, then you are going to struggle later in life telling boyfriends and husbands and male colleagues where your boundaries are at.
Yep.
I was like, so you can tell me anytime, any day, do or don't do something, and I will abide by it. Because I want you to feel safe telling another man no.
Yes. And that that's the norm. And I feel like growing up, I will say that is one aspect where obviously I didn't have that male figure of what is a safe example and expectations for the future. And I do think that a lot of times growing up, I realized, oh, but if I say no, then they won't like me, or I'll just go along with this, even though I feel really uncomfortable. Like, it was a solid no, but I was saying yes. And I'm thankful I am who I am because of everything that I've been through, right? But how much more powerful would it have been if I knew that I could stand up for myself and respect myself, and if they didn't like it, tough luck, you know? And I've been through this, it's been this growing process of learning how to love myself enough to feel comfortable to voice my yes and no, even in small things. It's wild how much that affects other aspects of your life, of being able to use your own voice. And so I love that you're doing that for your girls.
Did you have a male role model? Role model?
I love mole models.
I love mole models. Did you have a male role model growing up? Was there a grandfather or an uncle that's where you lent into for the masculine?
I think off and on, most of the time it would be like my best friend's dad.
Gotcha.
But even then, I'm trying to think. My not growing up, probably like around once I moved here. So my stepdad, so just to be clear, all of my parents and all of my step parents are all drug addicts, and some have recovered, some haven't. Some, their addiction is how they died. Gotcha. And, so there just hasn't been too much parental figure, my grandma was the main one.
Or consistency.
And so, yeah, exactly. And so my grandma, she was the most consistent. So I talk about her a lot. I reference her all the time. Our daughter actually is named after her because she has like such a powerful role in my
Grandma
life.
Sloan?
Well, her middle name is Leilani. My grandma's name was Lonnie. It's Hawaiian.
Lonnie?
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Lani, yeah. So Sloan Leilani. But yeah, so as far as a male figure goes, ironically, my stepdad, even though he still struggles with his addiction, I don't know. I was talking to my mom about it yesterday, actually, about how he still was able to put some core principles into me, you know, as far as how you treat others and helping other people and that kind of thing. And
I love that.
yeah, so not anything solid or consistent. I want to say though, my father-in-law has been like a huge support for me, and I think he's really in my adult life stepped in as that father figure.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you happen to have with your mom, obviously, because there was a lot of trauma there as you was a kid, and you know, whether it's right or wrong to say, she really wasn't a mother at that point. She was a female figure in your life, but she really probably wasn't a mother.
Well, and she was a kid herself. My parents were 17 when they had me.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, there's
she was still
so much you
figuring
can
her
do.
shit out, right?
Yeah.
But as you've grown older, do you have a mother-daughter relationship with your mom, or do you find that it's very much we're biologically connected, but we're more friends than we are mother-daughter?
We're more friends than anything. We used to be best friends.
Oh, really?
And then so when I moved back, she had been clean off and on for about 10 years, I think. Anyways, and she and I were on a friends basis. Like we would drink together and go to the bar together. We were very much best friends. Then she relapsed, and that's when I moved out on my own. And I had nothing. I had a bed, a dresser, and a coffee table.
Wow.
And I remember I had my housewarming party / birthday party, because it was the week before I moved. It was a week before my birthday. And I had to tell everybody, I'm like, bring your own booze, your cups, your chairs, your
silverware,
spoons, plates. Just bring your house with you. BYO alphabet. Like, I have nothing. We have a coffee table. But that was a huge growth opportunity for me. But now that she's been, and so for a while she was in her addiction, I was a parent.
Yeah. I was just about to ask that question. Was there a time of it where you were the parent and she was the...
And even when I was younger, when I lived with her, I remember I would wake myself up. I would get myself ready for school and pack my lunch if I needed to and do all of the stuff. And then if I needed her to take me, I would wake her up and then she would take me. Or if I needed her to walk me to the bus stop, I would wake her up and so she could walk me. Or if I didn't, I would just say, hey, Mom, I'm going to school. And I would take myself to school. So even when I was little, I was doing a lot for myself.
Doing a lot for yourself.
And now that she's clean, it's still a little bit of where I'm a parent and she comes to me for advice. But
do you go to her as a daughter? Do you give her the opportunity to be a parent?
I'm learning. I'm trying to.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to put myself in that parental role. That's something that I've actually been working on this year as far as setting boundaries within myself, because I don't like feeling like the parent for her. I like being a parent to my kids. I don't like being a parent to my parent. And so that's something that I've had to learn as far as setting boundaries on myself and even communicating with her like, hey, when you come to me with these issues or complaints or you're venting, just know I'm going to try my hardest to not give you advice anymore because it makes me feel like a parent and that's not what I want to feel in our relationship. And so there's been a lot of an evolution, but I think we're getting back to that friends. And yeah.
Well, I think it starts with baby steps, right? You know, you can be having a bad day. You and Ben have had an argument over what's for dinner. It could be the most stupidest thing.
Yeah.
Like that's the phone call where quite honestly, you don't care what your mom's opinion is. You don't care what her answer is. But if you give her the opportunity to give you an answer, so even if you just call her up and say, hey mom, you know, can I talk to you? Ben and I have had this stupid argument about dinner and I'm pissed and he's angry and blah, 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 blah. And I just need someone to talk to.
Yeah.
And then just let her roll. And if she's like, hey babe, well, have you thought about doing this? And she'll make you the world's worst advice, but go, you know what, mom, I appreciate it. I really needed this.
Just
it's
giving her the
that
opportunity.
first step into
Yeah.
just, and you don't want to give her big life situations for her to deal with, because she's probably going to be like, "Ooh, I haven't done this in
We're
20,
thinking of
30 years.
investing in, yeah.
Yeah, we're thinking about investing in real estate. What do you think we should do, Mom?" She's like,
Yeah. She'd be like, I don't know anything.
drugs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But those little things, you
Yeah.
know, I think that will
That's good
give her the
advice.
opportunity to fold her in, and maybe just ask the stupid, you know, questions of like, "Hey, Mom, I'm thinking about doing such and such, and you know, what would you do if you were me?" And you know, again, you probably don't want her advice. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but it gives her the opportunity to feel like she's
Yeah.
being a parent and connecting, you know,
That's
because
good
I think
advice,
that's what
actually.
they always want. Because Andrea has that with her mom sometimes.
Yeah.
Andrea has a very beautiful relationship with her mom, but it's very similar with regards to their friends versus a mother parent. And a lot of the time, and Andrea and Rhonda, my mother-in-law, would say this, that a lot of times Andrea is the parent. She parents, you know, her mom.
Yeah.
But there's also times too where Andrea just leans in. She's like, "I just need my mom." I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Just everybody needs mama sometimes."
Yeah, exactly.
You know? So what are some of the things, I have this burning question, that is, growing up with parents and grandparents or grandparents and step-parents, sorry, that have addictions, and obviously seeing that from a very young age, what kept you from going down that same road?
Well, to be clear, so my grandparents weren't in addiction. So I was
Okay.
very lucky to have that sliver of normalcy.
Gotcha. Okay.
It was an example of what not to do. I don't know, all of the processing that I had to go through of realizing. So when I was younger and I lived with my mom and we were living in cars and people's couches and sleeping on floors and that kind of a thing, all of the people that we associated with were living very similarly. So for me, that was normal. And once I moved away and I got to see what real normal was, that the lives people lived on TV shows weren't just some magical imagination. It was a real, people actually lived like that, like families in a house and things. Like that was normal. And I got to have that comparison and that glimpse. It made me realize, oh shit, I don't want to live like that. And I mean, of course I went through my teenage years and I had some rebellion and I was like trying all the things and partying and whatever, but I also knew that addiction runs in my family. And so if I tried something and I liked it, I knew that's what I needed to stay away from.
Slippery slope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just very cautious about it. I knew I didn't want to live like that. I knew that there was more to life.
Gotcha. And
that's what I wanted. I wanted to have the house and the family and the car and be able to go on vacations and travel the world and all that.
That's very powerful as a young, you know, child, teenager, whatever age that's happening, to be able to process that and look. And, you know, because a lot of kids, it's monkey see, monkey do. Mom and dad do something, we do something.
And for a lot of my siblings, that's what it was.
It did.
Yeah.
Did your siblings go down the same road with addictions and stuff like that?
It's really interesting. So I have a stepbrother, and just short story as an example. He was in prison and he wanted me to go pick something up because he was about to be transferred and he couldn't take these things with him. So I went to go pick it up and I say his name, or I say last name, you know, because I'll go by their last name. And she says, "Oh, is it this first name?" And I was like, "Oh, no, that's actually my stepdad." She's like, oh, your brother and your stepdad are both in here? And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of the black sheep in the family, but the other way around.
In fact, if we could just put all of my family members that are in here in one room, I could knock all this out in one trip.
I don't have to come back again for all this stuff. Yeah.
God, that's
so it was kind of interesting because she and I were both able to laugh about it a little bit. I'm like, yeah, I'm the one who just lived.
Do you get embarrassed by that?
I used to. Yeah. I used to lie about where my parents were. I used to lie about the reasons that we moved so much. I went to 14 elementary schools by the time I was in 4th grade.
Wow.
And I told people would ask, "Oh, are your parents in the military?" No, we just liked to move a lot, you know? Or I would just kind of give surfacey answers. But I've realized that my life story isn't anything to be like, it's not something that I should be ashamed of, because a lot of it had nothing to do with my choices. It was, I was in the situation because of my parents or whoever was taking care of me.
Yeah.
And I've realized in talking to people how much more common it really is than people realize. And I think it needs to be talked about. I don't think there should be any shame around it, because there's no healing when there's shame.
Mm-hmm. 1,000%. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's probably been more recently that I've been talking about it. And it used to be just little tidbits here and there, but I had an experience last weekend where
At the retreat?
the retreat that I went to, where I was able to kind of talk to people about how I grew up, and for the first time not feel any shame or judgment from them or towards myself about it, and realizing like, this is powerful. This is not just something where I can help other people, but I realized how much I was healing in that moment of being able to share who I really was and where I really came from.
I love that.
So yeah.
So is that what led to the podcast?
Yeah.
Tell us about that. So tell us all about this.
So it's called Life of a Lotus.
Life of a Lotus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So a lotus is a flower. It starts in the mud and the muck, right? And then it comes up and it becomes this beautiful blossom. And all everybody sees is that blossom. They don't really see the muck, but the blossom is pulling nutrients from that to become this beautiful blossom. And so it's just my story and other people's stories of how, whether it's been one situation or their entire life, and how they've chosen, it's all about choice, how they've chosen to live differently and not follow that pattern.
I
and
love
become
that.
this blossom. Yeah.
So when does it go live?
Thursday, the 21st.
Next week?
Yeah.
Yay.
I'm excited. I'm nervous about it. Especially because I haven't really told my story up until probably like the last couple of months. People have been really getting the full story from me. And so I think for some people that I've known for years and years didn't even know this side of me.
Is there a fear there of people knowing the true you and your true story? Like people that you've been friends with for a long time that don't know about the backstory, the addiction, the split parenting, like the things that you've kind of kept away from people. They know you, they know Ben, they know your kids, but they don't know the backstory. Has there been a fear of, oh God, it's going to be really awkward to have this conversation?
100%. One of, they're not going to understand. They are going to judge me. Or a lot of it was, I don't want them to feel sorry for me that I went through this.
Yeah.
Oh, poor Amber. She's so broken and she went through all of these hard and terrible things and the things that she saw and went through. Like, I don't want pity. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I was just a kid that was present while these things were happening. And
very grounded.
Thank you.
Yeah, for somebody that's gone through what you've gone through, to be honest with you, split family, addiction, prison, raised by grandparents, moving around, 14 different, elementary schools.
Yeah.
For someone to come out and not be an addict, not be an asshole.
Thanks.
To be grounded, to be maternal, to be a mother, to be loving, to do the research and set the boundaries and be the very best they can be as a parent, like that is a huge testament.
Thank you.
You haven't had a monkey see, monkey do. You haven't had a follow me, do this, here's the guidebook. You've written it yourself from a very young age. You've had to be a parent whilst a child. You've had to be a child whilst being a parent. You've had to, you've done so many things in 37, 38 years that people won't do in their entire lives.
Yeah.
And to still come out and to be loving and be a great mother and a great wife and, run a business and run a podcast and blah, blah, like, that's a freaking testament.
Thank you.
That's a real powerful testament.
Thank you. It's been a lot of work.
Do you intend to, and I know we're years down the line at this point, but do you intend to tell Sloan and Beck the story of their grandparents and give them the truth, or would you give them the narrative of they're your grandparents and they're not around, but they,
I think here's one thing that I really appreciate about my mom is that even though my biological dad was very abusive, very manipulative, just not a good person, she very much allowed me to have my own relationship with him. And so when she did share things of her experience, she made it clear that that was her experience with him. And she only shared what was appropriate or what I could handle for my age.
Gotcha.
Or understand. And so I think that it's fair for my kids to share what's appropriate for them to understand. So right now, Beckett has asked, well, how come I don't have another grandpa? Where's your dad? Because my father-in-law is very much in the picture. They are best buds and I love it. But he has asked more recently, but where's your dad? Where's my other grandpa? And I've had to just be, well, he lives in Colorado. We just don't talk very much.
Yeah.
And just keep it simple. I don't think it's fair to my kids to, once they're adults and can fully handle all of it, to shield them from that.
Yeah.
Because that undoes everything that I've been learning
Breaks
and
all their
growing
trust.
and working towards. Yeah. As far as like, this isn't something to be ashamed of and this has nothing to do with you.
Well,
These
also,
are
what else
choices
is
they
mom
made.
keeping from me about my family?
Right.
If mom's keeping what my grandfather was and who my grandmother was, what else is she keeping from me?
Yeah, exactly. And we're breaking generational cycles here.
Hell yeah.
Big ones. So I just think if I'm doing all of this work for myself to become a better mom, become a better wife, become a better friend, and just person in general, someone that I'm happy to be, if I'm not, and I'm sharing my story, but I'm not being honest about the full picture with my kids, I'm undoing all of that work.
Yeah. That's very, very, very true. And that's the last thing you want, is to do as I say, but not as I do type of thing.
Yeah.
With the kids.
But of course, it does have to be like what's appropriate for them. I'm not going to full on and be like, yeah, and your grandpa was in prison. And Yeah. Because he can't handle that right now.
Oh,
He's
absolutely. Absolutely not. It's like, grandpa's a jailbird?
I know.
What?
Can you imagine him going to
When you go to
preschool
school,
and
my
telling his
granddad
teacher?
is a prison. He's in prison. I was like, what? My grandpa loves orange. He wears it all the time.
And stripes. Numbers on his chest.
He's got numbers on
thing.
his chest. Oh, my God, that was so funny. Beck's going to school as Halloween next year, dressed as grandpa with an orange jumpsuit on and numbers and Utah County Jail on his back. He's like, yeah.
That'd be hilarious. And also so sad, but hilarious.
Family day at school and he's rocking in his grandpa. Oh,
Bring your grandpa to school day. I can't.
I can't. We can zoom him in, but we can't bring him in. Oh, my Lord. Well, Amber, I have absolutely loved this episode.
Thanks.
I truly mean what I said a few seconds ago. For somebody who's gone through what you've gone through, and to come out the other side as loving as you are as a wife and as a mother and as a friend. And I've heard such wonderful things about you, not just from Andrea, but also from Michelle and Amanda and Nicole and all the other queens that I know. They've all said glowing things about you when I said you were coming on the show. So
Thank you.
I'm very excited to hear your podcast. I will be subscribing and tuning in.
Thanks.
And it's been an absolute pleasure and honor to have you on. I love Ben. I think he's a great guy. We had
He's a good guy.
such
I
good
like him.
fun in Spain. So he's a one in a million. But I'm just very honored that you came on, and thank you for taking the time today.
Thank you. This means a lot to me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to the Bear Den podcast. Please click subscribe and get the updates for our new episodes. And if you feel the need to reach out, you can reach me on Instagram @TheBritBear.